In this video, I'm going to be sharing specific ways in which you can legitimately get time off your work, your job, to focus on your side hustle, your passions, your hobbies, whatever your dream may be, and you're struggling to find time for that thing. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to do it. I'm Badalia. I am an NHS doctor. I'm also a DJ, and despite these two careers being completely opposite, the NHS being a system which is understaffed and overworked, I've managed to create enough time to chase my passions of becoming an internationally touring DJ. Right now, I'm on holiday, and the truth is, these skills do feel like hacks, which, if more people knew how to do them, then they would be getting the time off that they want to achieve that work-life balance and fulfillment. You could be a lawyer, a dentist, a teacher, an engineer, a firefighter, a waitress. But on the side, you're trying to build that career of becoming a personal trainer, a DJ, a singer, a writer, a content creator, whatever. This is how you get your employer on side to give you that time off. Number one, the first thing you need to do is find the ways in which these two things, your main job, your career that you're struggling to get time off, and the thing that you're trying to build, connect. What are the common skill sets required that might benefit your employer? For example, does this hobby or passion of yours, let's say it's fitness, increase your confidence? It's giving you the knowledge to improve your performance, your fitness, your productivity. Perhaps that connects with your job as being a lawyer because that confidence translates to more confidence in this space as well. You'll then be able to enrich this workforce with that knowledge, let's say by running fitness classes. For me, as a DJ, what I've done, by packaging them together, by saying that I am a doctor and DJ, the media that I get by being a DJ benefits the healthcare space. It gives the organizations I work for publicity when I'm on TV, doing radio interviews, and so on. There is something in it for your employer, so make sure you connect the two and you think about what is it that I can bring from this into this. That's step number one. Okay, once you have broadly figured out how these two worlds connect, then you need to figure out how you're going to communicate your vision and your passion of this thing to your employer, because they really need to feel this passion to know that it's something that you want to take seriously and that they need to support you with at all costs. They do want to keep you happy, but also they need to think about the ways that this is going to benefit their organization as well. For me, when I started my DJ career, I wanted to become as big a DJ as possible. I hadn't really thought about how it relates to being a doctor. As a med student, you don't really think about that. You just want to have a good time. But as I started getting tied into shift patterns and rotas, I had to be more creative about how I was pitching this time off. And so in conversations with these consultants who are much older, I said to them, like, look, I'm a DJ. That is my passion. Outside of work, I love to make music because it's so good for my mental well-being, and I want to be able to share that with the world. And that is true. Those words of mental well-being and music connect with absolutely everyone. And specifically, it's much more appealing to them than me saying, I want to be a DJ because I want to travel the world and play shows to hundreds of thousands of people. They just won't get that. It has no real tangible value. Once you've had that informal conversation with your employer or your boss, it's important to start building a portfolio. However you want to present this is up to you, but I personally use Canva because it's a brilliant website where you can include photos, videos if you want to. You can document your journey in like a slide deck presentation type format. That's what I do. And it just means I can create dedicated pages within one PDF which show the journey that I've been on. Look, the steps don't have to be so big. Over time, you will simplify the steps like that. But in the earlier stages, what you want to do is just present what the work is you have done. Did you get a qualification? Have you written something? Have you put something on the internet? Have you coached some clients? Whatever it may be, to demonstrate you're interested. Are you part of any societies that are in that space you're trying to be part of? Something to show tangibly you are trying to be part of this new world to your employer is what you want to include in this slide deck. And as time goes on, you amend it to include more achievements, goals, impact you've had, it's an evolving thing that every time you have a new boss or employers or whoever, you can just send this to them and they can be like, okay, this is very clear what this person's mission is. Keep it as updated as possible with events you go to, conferences, accomplishments that tie directly to this thing that you're trying to build outside of work. Continuing to think about how it connects into and benefits this employer. Now that you've created this portfolio that you're going to keep developing over time to show your employers, to show your bosses, how do you actually get days off? Fine, you can use your annual leave to focus on your hobbies and passions, but really you want more time off. In contract, working full-time as a doctor, I only get 9 days off every 4 months, which is not enough considering when you're working shift patterns, you do need to sleep and relax as well. So you want a bit more time off. And to grow in the other thing that you're doing, you want to be able to go to events, conferences, network with people, meetings, whatever. You will have things that you need to go to further this career outside of your main one. In most careers, your employer will be required to give you a certain number of days of study leave or professional development time outside of those working hours. That could be a number of days per month, a number of days per year. I know in medicine, we get something like 15 days per year when we're training. So we're qualified doctors, but up until we're consultant level 7-10 years later, we get this number of days where we can go to conferences and workshops. And yeah, the expectation is we're going to be going to these conferences or workshops that directly relate to the curriculum, but you can be more creative about it. A couple of years ago, I really wanted to go to an event at YouTube in London focused on content creation. Now, content creation is so different to being a doctor. I do have my social media channels, but why would my employer say yes to me going to this event on content creation when there is no direct link versus another conference which might be on, I don't know, skin rashes or headaches? Or what I said was, look, for this conference, this is the order of the day. There are speakers from Google, including those who create health information online. I talked about how social media and YouTube is an important platform for public health information. And yet, in part of my training, it talks about how we should be educating our patients, how we share public health messaging and communicating with our patients. That's how I sold it, and they gave me the day off as study leave. I just screenshotted that order of events, put it in my portfolio, and I got it signed off. So if you think outside the box, there are ways of using this professional development time for whatever it is else you want to be doing. And it's a brilliant strategy if you've run out of annual leave. When you do that, I would also say, make sure you follow up in writing to whoever your employer is. You want that written confirmation, because if there is a slightly loose link there, you need to make sure that you had justified it to that person in writing and they had given you written approval for you to have that day off. So there's no questions later on. And once you've been to that event, inform your employer of how it's benefited you, how it will make you better in whatever career you've done, and how you might use that information to improve the organization you're working for. Then they're more likely to support you again in the future. The next point, how do you negotiate time off for last minute opportunities? So the last example was about how you can plan ahead to get days off. But let's say something lands on your lap in 48 hours time. I've had days where I'm at work on a Monday and then I've received 10 emails that day because something on social media has gone viral, and multiple news channels have emailed me or they're calling me saying, we want you on this show tomorrow morning or the day after at 6 a.m. and I'm worried that I won't make it into work in time. My instinct would be, there's no point bothering asking them because they're already short-staffed, so why bother? But actually, having done it for myself, I know for a fact that you can definitely get time off for last-minute opportunities as well if you pitch it correctly. So you already created that portfolio earlier, that's already ready. Now, I don't want you to put it in writing to them if you can avoid it, because by putting something in writing, they'll either ignore it because they're too busy to read it, you won't get a reply, and in your mind, you'll be taking that as a no. They'll misunderstand it and perhaps say no. The best thing to do is when you're at work that day, go to whoever the boss is who can make that decision. If there are multiple bosses, go for the person who you think is most likely to be on your side. You go to them with this portfolio and you say, look, I've been given this incredible opportunity in 1 day's time, in 2 days' time. Communicate that passion. Deliver it with confidence, like you're meant to be doing this thing. If they don't know who you are, tell them briefly who you are, what you do, what your mission is, what this thing you do outside of work is. Summarize it, know exactly how you're going to deliver that, and you can use your portfolio as evidence so it's very clear what it is you're doing and you're not just messing about. When you go to them, you'll be worried that they're going to say no, but never assume that the response is no. The response is actually yes, if you can solve any problems that they might have, for example, staffing when you're away. So in that conversation, you can say to them, look, I understand in 2 days' time we are short of staff, but I've spoken to, and then make sure earlier on in the day you have spoken to someone lower down who might be able to cover you. Have that solution in place so that boss can give you the sign off as easily as possible. The absolute key to your approach in this is you are not asking for permission, rather you are expressing what you are going to do and what you would like to do, obviously with their support, and opening up a conversation about how you may facilitate this. It's really interesting because when I approached one of my bosses a couple of years ago, who I'd never spoken to before on that job, I thought he was going to say no. I didn't think he was going to get it, but it was an immediate yes. And in fact, it was for a television interview. And he said, would you be able to give us a shout out on TV? I didn't, and I wouldn't have been able to. But I said, look, if any opportunities come up in the future where I can, I definitely will. The key is to always be honest about what you're going to be doing. Never take time off work pretending to be sick, because eventually people will find out and it's definitely not worth the risk. Okay, let's say you have been refused time off work despite having given plenty of notice. Let's say you've given 3 months notice and work has said no. This is how you get time off work. Let me give you a real life example. I had the biggest show of my career on the 1st of January this year. I was set to be DJing to 500,000 people in London, on the streets of London, broadcasted on 1,000 TV channels. This show had been planned like 8 months in advance. So I gave my employer at the time 3 months notice. That's 12 weeks notice. And in the medical world, it's accepted that if you give at least 6 weeks notice, then they should give you the time off. So I gave them 12 weeks notice way before I'd even received the rota for that period of time. I didn't hear anything back, and I'd even chased it. You'll never guess what happened. I received that rota when I was a week until starting that job. It was a new job, and they'd put me on call working that day, 1st of January. And I said, look, I've given you 12 weeks notice. Why have you made me work this? Like, this is not right. Please help. I need this day off for this massive event which has been in planning. It was a very nice email. They said, sorry, you're going to have to swap it with someone else. Who is going to want to swap working New Year's Day with me? Why should that be my problem? So I contacted our union for doctors in the UK, and they said actually it's not a legal requirement for them to give you the time off, even if you've given them 6 weeks notice. It's just something that they should honour, ideally. So I was kind of stuck. They could not help me. And I emailed the rota coordinator lady 4 or 5 times, and the response was the same. Swap the shift. It's the only way you're going to get the day off. So the only option then was to go up the chain of command. Point here being that if someone, particularly in an admin role, tells you you can't have the day off, it's because they're in an admin role which is very different to your professional role. So they don't fully understand what it is that you do day to day and what the importance of what this thing is you're doing has on your broader career. So don't accept their no as an answer. Go to someone who's in an informed position to make that decision for them instead. And they probably won't like it, but it's got to be done. I worked at the chain of the command to the clinical director. It's the person who oversees that department I'm working in, a doctor that has a leadership role in the division. And I sent a very nice email with details, with that portfolio I had been developing over a long time, saying, look, this is my mission. These are the things I've done as a DJ and doctor that tie into the public health space. And I even said to her, the reason I am now a part-time doctor, which is another thing to do, is if you decide to go part-time, which we'll talk about more later, as part of your application and reason for being part-time, make it clear that you have this thing outside of work. I said to her, my reason for being part-time was so that I can focus more on this type of work. I expressed that I need to find a way to make this work and that I'd be grateful for their support. In my head, I was thinking, being told no for something like this is the very reason why I, in my mind, had questioned whether working as a doctor in the NHS was something I wanted to do. But there's always a workaround if you play it smartly. I then received an email a couple of days later from that admin rota lady saying that I'd now been granted the day off because that senior lady had given me permission for the day off. So that rota lady's no quickly switched to a yes when she'd been given direction from someone higher up who understood and took the time, gave her that instruction. So the key takeaways with that are follow protocol as much as possible. So yeah, give enough notice, put things in writing, challenge it and see what they say, but nicely. Then work up the chain of command. Always be professional in your writing. Never appear irritable. Imagine that a third person is reading whatever you're writing. I know it can be frustrating not to be given time off, but you always have to look like the party who was really fair in the approach. Don't assume that their staffing levels are actually short. So you've got to push it sometimes. By the way, if you are enjoying this video, please give it a like. It helps push it in the algorithm and more people can benefit from this content. And also it will show you more of my videos, and hit the subscribe button. Okay, let's talk about going part-time. I did this after 2 years of seriously building my DJ/media career. My advice would be to consider this when you're at a point where you believe you'll be able to start monetizing whatever this thing is that you're doing, or you have enough money in the bank to allow you to focus on this thing. Because the only way you're going to get to the next step of your passion, your hobby, your side hustle is by having more time and energy to dedicate to it. When making this decision, you need to think about, one, do I have enough money in the bank to cover at least 3 months of bills? Think about, will my part-time income cover my essential living costs? Also, you need to project what level of income this hobby or passion will give you over the next 12 months and create a strategy that's going to ensure that happens. Also think about, is this project scalable and sustainable in the long run? Or are you just doing it for fun? That's also okay, but just make sure you're clear on why you're doing it and what your strategy is. And I'd say most importantly, when you're going part-time, you need to figure out whether you are comfortable with potentially having some financial instability during that period where you are going part-time, because you will have less income each month. I am currently 80%, which means I get 1 day off per week, at the moment Fridays. And having that Friday off has been an absolute game changer for me because the week feels shorter, my weekends feel longer. I have more time and energy to focus on my passions. I have a dedicated day and I can unwind a little bit more on the weekends. And also my employer sometimes allows me to move that Friday day to other days. Let's say if I have a meeting in a different city on a Wednesday, I can move it to that day. It also splits my on-call rota. So these are the shifts which are like emergency shifts, meaning that rather than doing sets of 4 night shifts, I could just be doing 2 or 3. So overall, my happiness and fulfillment is much, much greater. I hope that all made sense. These aren't things anyone will ever teach you when you're going through your career, because those organizations are designed to keep you working for them, but there are ways to make it work to your advantage. If you found this video helpful, please like it, subscribe to my channel for more content, and comment below what challenges you face or other strategies you think I could implement or other people viewing this video could implement to get that time off work and to have more time for the things that they love doing. If you're interested in seeing how 2 days in my life actually looks, for that event where I DJed to 500,000 people and the next day I was back in hospital, watch this video on screen here where I vlog the entire experience and I talk about how I have managed to be successful in both careers. See you there.